The lost World War II water hack modern filters can't beat. Still working today. Water has always chosen its own victims. It doesn't care if you're a soldier on the front line, a pilot stranded behind enemy territory, or a family huddled in a blackout. When it turns dirty, dangerous, or diseased, it drops people faster than bullets. And here's the twist that pulls you in fast. During World War II, the most reliable, resilient, and field-tested method for making deadly water safe didn't come from fancy gear or high-tech filters. It came from chemistry, charcoal, and sheer wartime desperation. And, the craziest part? It still works better than most modern survival gadgets today. During World War II, soldiers, resistance fighters, and civilians were thrown into environments where clean water simply didn't exist. Wells were poisoned by fuel leaks, rivers carried runoff from factories, battlefields, and decomposing bodies. Snowmelt was filled with microbes, and in jungles, even the rain could make you sick. If you couldn't boil water, and under constant shelling or jungle ambushes, most people couldn't, you were gambling with cholera, dysentery, and typhoid. Entire units were crippled without a single shot fired. The military needed a solution that worked anywhere, under any conditions, with almost nothing. And what they created quietly became one of history's most effective survival systems. This method wasn't magic. It was a two-stage process refined from World War I experiments, upgraded for the extremes of World War II, and carried in the pockets of soldiers across 3 continents. The idea was simple. First, disinfect the water so the invisible killers, bacteria, viruses, protozoa, never get a chance to multiply in your gut. Then filter the water so the chemicals, the smell, the taste, and the dirt don't follow you into the next canteen. What made it legendary wasn't the steps themselves, but how adaptable they were. You could perform the entire process with a single tablet, a handful of charcoal, or even improvised materials in the middle of nowhere. Here's how it worked. Troops were issued small tablets containing a chlorine-based compound that released chlorine dioxide when dropped into water. Unlike regular chlorine or bleach, chlorine dioxide was more stable, more effective, and far less harsh on the stomach. 1 tablet in a metal canteen could disinfect an entire liter of water in 30 minutes, killing everything that shouldn't be there. Then came the second phase. Soldiers poured the treated water through layers of cloth, sand, and crushed charcoal, usually scraped right from a campfire. That charcoal was the secret weapon. It absorbed chemical residue, removed smells, cleaned the appearance, and scrubbed out anything the disinfectant missed. What came out the other side was clear, nearly odorless, fully safe water that could be stored for hours without spoiling. Tests run by the Quartermaster Corps showed this combination reduced waterborne illness by more than 80% in the field. That is a staggering number for something that required no machines, no cartridges, and no electricity. And here's where it gets even more interesting. When soldiers ran out of tablets, they improvised. They used household bleach in tiny, precise amounts. They used potassium compounds when available. They built filters from bamboo tubes, soot-lined containers, or multiple layers of cloth holding charcoal from burned wood. The principle never changed. Kill the pathogens, neutralize the impurities, filter the remains. From Arctic snowfields to tropical jungles to abandoned European villages, the technique worked every single time. This was survival chemistry at its purest. No luxury, no backup plan, just results. Now here's the part modern preppers don't always want to hear. If the grid died tomorrow, most survival gadgets would last a few days at best. UV pens need batteries, filters clog, pumps jam, cartridges don't magically regenerate. But the World War II system? It relies on materials that will exist as long as humans can make fire. Charcoal, cloth, basic disinfectant chemicals. These don't expire in a crisis. They don't malfunction. They don't need a power supply. If you know what you're doing, you could replicate this entire wartime process with the leftover charcoal in a cold fire pit and a teaspoon of household bleach. To use it effectively today, you follow the same disciplined approach soldiers used 80 years ago. Start by straining your dirtiest available water through cloth to remove debris. Then disinfect it. Chlorine dioxide tablets are still sold everywhere, and they work exactly the way they worked in 1944. If that's not available, use 2 drops of bleach per liter. Stir and wait 30 minutes. Once disinfected, filter it through charcoal, real charcoal, not briquettes with chemical binders. Crush it, layer it between cloth or sand inside a bottle or improvised funnel, and pour the treated water through slowly. The charcoal removes residue, improves taste, and ensures anything left behind gets caught. If you want even cleaner results, repeat the process. Disinfect, filter, disinfect again. You're working with survival-grade water at that point, the same quality that kept paratroopers alive across Europe and infantry units moving through the Pacific. The real power of this method isn't just what it does, it's what it represents. World War II forced everyday people to think like engineers and problem solvers. They built safety out of scraps. They turned battlefield chaos into practical chemistry. When you use this forgotten technique today, you're tapping into a mindset built on resilience, adaptability, and simple science that refuses to quit. You're connecting to a lineage of people who didn't just survive, they made survival a system. And that's what History Survival Code is all about. Learning the old ways not because they're nostalgic, but because they work. Because sometimes the most powerful tools aren't new, they're proven. If you found this guide valuable, subscribe to History Survival Code and share this video with someone who loves real-world preparedness and untold history. The old ways still work, and in moments that matter, they work better than ever.